What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to a very special Let's Ride podcast. Every time the Steelers don't play on a Sunday, I do a special winners and losers podcast, and this is Sunday morning. It is not a victory Sunday. You're not going to hear my full take on the game. That'll be coming up on Monday. Today, this is just the winners and losers following the Steelers' 19-17 loss in Week 18 to the Cincinnati Bengals. It's their fourth straight loss as they now crawl their way into the postseason. And this is bad. It's bad. And I asked myself when I was finishing up the postgame show with Dave Schofield, do I want to sleep on this and get up early in the morning and record? Or do I just want to hit record and let's just go off the cuff? And the answer is I went with the latter. Let's hit record. Got a lot of thoughts on my brain. I've already got the list together. We have 4 winners and 9 losers in this game. I do want to say that on Monday, I'm going to dive into this more and my thoughts on the team and the state of this team heading into the playoffs. There still is a postseason game, and we are going to cover it just like we do every single day. But I know a lot of people are down. A lot of people are not looking forward to the playoffs. I get it. I understand it completely. But this is about just this game. The winners and losers here are just about this contest, this 19-17 loss. The 4th straight, like I just mentioned. Let's do this. We know how this works. If you don't, we go the winners first. Let's start off with the first winner, Cam Hayward. Now, you look at Cam Hayward's stat line, and you're like, really? He has 1 tackle, but he does have 3 pass defenses. Now, I had him on the winners list already, but then I'm listening to his post-game press conference, and he sounds kind of rough. Sounds like he's sick. And he basically started getting the flu, had flu-like symptoms on Friday, and he came out and had one hell of a game. Just because the stat line doesn't show how dominant he was in the front, he was putting a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow, getting his hands on passes. This is the type of veteran savvy you want to see from the Steelers with an aging veteran like Cam Hayward. There's another aging veteran on the team that maybe doesn't follow into that line of thinking, but we'll get to that in a bit. Cam Hayward, though, deserves to be on the winners list. And in my opinion, I think he probably, I guarantee he got votes for MVP for the Steelers this year. I think he should probably get some recognition for Defensive Player of the Year. Will he win? No. But should he at least be acknowledged as getting a couple votes and being on the docket? Yes. He's had that type of season. It's been really, really good. So Cam Hayward, good for him. He's on the winners list. The next is Keanu Benton. Keanu Benton, who's kind of like Cam's little protege. When you see clips of the team, whether it's Hard Knocks or something like that, Keanu Benton's always by Cam Hayward. He's always picking his brain. Second-year player, boy, did he have a good game. 5 tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. He had that sack, first and foremost, was huge. That sack pushed the Bengals out of that range of thinking they could go for it, got the Steelers the ball back. It didn't pan out, but Keanu Benton has done a tremendous job this season. He's been disruptive. It might not have always shown up on the stat line, but he's been very, very good. Excuse me. So Keanu Benton deserves to be on the winners list. Next, the red zone defense. The Steelers' red zone defense, which has been a little iffy at times this season. Well, they hold Cincinnati, the Bengals, one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. They have 1 touchdown on 4 trips into the red zone. The Bengals only put up 19 points, and a reason why this bend don't break philosophy where the Steelers were giving up yards, but they weren't letting them score. This was a tremendous effort from the red zone defense. And some people might say, well, Jamar Chase dropped that touchdown. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. The Steelers defense did the job. They scored on their first offensive drive, and they didn't score a touchdown after that. Just a really, really awesome job by the Steelers. I can't get over that fact that the Bengals scored a first quarter touchdown and didn't score another touchdown the rest of the game. The defense, when I was watching the game, I felt really, really awful. Felt that they couldn't stop anyone. But when you let the dust settle on the game, you realize this defense actually played a really good game. And one player who I want to acknowledge as the 4th and final winner is Beanie Bishop. Rookie Beanie Bishop, who got his I think it was his fourth interception of the season, I believe. And what a play it was, and boy, was it needed. This interception came, if you remember the sequence, Calvin Austin fumbles the punt. He doesn't muff it, he's returning it. Ball's on the ground. Bengals recover. The Bengals look like they're gonna score a touchdown. It's gonna be like a dagger. Beanie Bishop's interception comes on that next possession. Now the Steelers get the ball back. They drive to midfield. They turn it over on downs, and that's when the Bengals go and kick the field goal. That was where you were thinking, okay, that interception negated Calvin Austin's fumble in a sense. Now, the Steelers gave the ball back, but still, I think Beanie Bishop has been a really positive part of the Steelers. And since Cam Sutton has come off of his suspension, he hasn't played as much. I get it. But I think that he's like a little Mike Hilton type. No one expects much of him, but as he continues to learn, he continues to be a part of the team, and they're going to have that role expand for him. So good for Beanie Bishop. He's the fourth and final winner on this winners and losers. Now, if you're watching this anywhere on any platform, not going anywhere, we're going to talk losers here in a second. If you're listening to this on the audio side, we'll be right back after this break to talk all about the losers. We'll be right back. Okay, it's time to talk about the losers. We have 9 of them. And to be honest, a lot of folks might say, Jeff, you should probably have more than 9. I don't want to nitpick with this article that I write for SteelCurtainNetwork.com. I don't want to nitpick with this podcast. I just want to call it like I see it. And some of this is like a gut reaction. It's right after the game when I'm getting this list together. And sometimes I make mistakes. And the next day I read the list after I've already put out the podcast. I've already published the article and I say, man, maybe I shouldn't have put that guy on there. But nonetheless, here we go. The losers. We're starting with Russell Wilson. His stat line reads 17 of 31, 148 yards, a 4.8 yard average. He did throw a touchdown, no interceptions, 4 sacks for 29 yards for a 78.4 rating. The stat line is not why I have Russell Wilson on the losers list. The reason I have Russell Wilson on the losers list is because the Steelers have him because he's supposed to be that been there, done that veteran leadership. And what play typified how that hasn't been what they've gotten in the last 4 games, then when Russell Wilson has an opportunity to throw the ball away to stop the clock with about 50 seconds left or to run out of bounds, and instead he has a brain fart and tries to cut the ball up the field, gets tackled by a defensive back and burns off over 20 seconds of clock. And then he gets sacked on the next play, and then they have to burn their time out. That's not why they brought in Russell Wilson. That is not it at all. The Steelers brought him in to be that veteran presence. It's the same decision when he fumbled the ball in Baltimore. Running down to the end zone, you're thinking he's going to score or he's going to slide. Fumble, everything changes. Russell Wilson has not played well. Russell Wilson, maybe not the reason why they're losing, has played poorly enough that they are not putting them, he's not putting them in a position to win. Russell Wilson needs to be better. If the Steelers have any prayer, and I know people don't want to hear this, they have any prayer of winning a playoff game, he has to be a lot better than what we've seen so far. And on top of that, the Steelers coaching staff, front office, they are evaluating every step along the way. Don't think that Russell Wilson's stock isn't trending in the wrong direction as he looks for his next team and his next contract after the season. The next loser is George Pickens. You know, I wrote the article. I do this with Dave Schofield every game day. It's our X Factor article. Who's your X Factor? This week, I said my X Factor was George Pickens because he's been under some scrutiny. He was the one that, our buddy Alan Saunders from Steelers, now he's been on my podcast a bunch. He was asking him about he and Russell Wilson not being on the same page, whatever. A lot of people were pissed off about George Pickens. So I said in the article, the X Factor, George Pickens, he's have a big game. Just shut everyone up by the way that you play. Well, George, I doubt he read the article, but he did the complete opposite. He had 1 catch for no yards, and he had 3 crucial drops. I don't know what to say about George Pickens. But the one thing that sticks out to me, because every receiver, quarterback receiver combo, they have bad games. But what stood out to me was George Pickens arguing with fans during the game. He is turning around, jawing at fans, telling them to come, come get some, essentially, during the game. It's that immaturity that I can't tolerate it. I don't like it. So George Pickens is on the loser list, which should shock no one. Next, let's go to Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator. And the stat line is simple: ineptitude in all phases. And this is going to bleed into the next loser as well, but that's fine. Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin and the coaching staff, and we'll talk about this shortly, they had over, I think, 11 days to prepare for this game. A division rival. So a familiar foe. And the offense comes out and they put that on the field. I'm sorry. I thought we fired Matt Canada last year. That was awful. That was awful in every possible phrase, the sense of the word. It was horrible. It was inept. It's exactly what it was. It was inept. Arthur Smith is on the loser list. And why is he on the losers list? I'll give you an example. The next loser, offensive output. Here's the stat line. The Steelers as an offense totaled 193 total yards. They didn't even eclipse 200 yards total offense. 119 yards passing, 74 yards rushing. That's it. That's not good enough. And I think back to, the Steelers, in case you missed the beginning of the game, the Bengals choose the coin toss. They lose it. The Steelers choose to defer. So they get the ball to start the second half. So third quarter, they're coming out of halftime. Steelers touchback. They get the ball. They've had all halftime to talk about this. Okay, what are we going to do? What play are we going to run? We can really, I think maybe this is when I would say, let's run a play action pass, something they did not do. Nope, they run a toss. Let's run a pitch left to a running back. And it gets shut down for -4 yards. What is happening? What are we doing? Who is saying that that's a good idea? Maybe it's Russell Wilson checking into it at the line of scrimmage. I don't think so. But the starts have been bad. And now it used to be, well, once they figure it out in the second half, they turn it on. Well, they're not doing that anymore. So since they're not doing that, we're seeing this ineptitude for all 4 quarters. It's awful. Let's go to the next loser. And I hate to put this guy on the list. I like him a lot. But you just can't do what he did. And that's Calvin Austin III. The Steelers just cannot not have that costly turnover. It's been backbreaking. It's been a killer. That fumbled punt didn't equate in points, but it eventually did because of the Steelers not being able to convert at midfield on 4th and short. But that was such a costly turnover. When you just think about the ebb and flow of the game, the Steelers had just forced a punt, something they didn't do often in the early goings of that game. They get the ball back. You're thinking, here we go. They're going to have time to go down and put points on the board before the half. And you fumble the football. You just can't do that. And it just seems like every week it's someone else that is making this type of play. It's been Najee Harris. It's been Russell Wilson. It's been Calvin Austin. It's been George Pickens. It's been Pat Freiermuth. My gosh, it's got to end. If they're ever going to win a playoff game, whether it's this year or in the future, you can't have these type of turnovers. It just is going to be a killer. Okay, let's go to the next one. Next loser, kickoff coverage. Not kick coverage, kickoff coverage. Their punt coverage is pretty good. Their kickoff coverage, not so much. The kickoff coverage, I understand Mike Tomlin's theory of, well, Joe Burrow and the offense is prolific. We want to pin him deep as much as we can. We don't just want to give him to him at the 30-yard line with the touchback. I get that. I really do. But at the same time, the kickoff coverage is so poor that what's happening is you're giving them the ball at the 40, 45, or closer to the 50. So just kick it out of the end zone. It's just not working. Don't think yourself. Kickoff coverage has been bad. Next, we're going to go to drop passes. The stat line is there were just too many to count. George Pickens, 3 drop passes. Calvin Austin with the drop pass. It was a tough catch, but it was a drop pass. Pat Freiermuth with maybe the most egregious. Man, I'm not saying it would have been in a comfortable field goal range for Chris Boswell, but you would have given him a chance. And that was for all the bad throws that Russell Wilson had in this game, that was a good one. And so these drop passes compound these issues that are ongoing with the Steelers, like the turnovers. You just can't have them. Okay, let's go into the next loser. We have 2 left. The Steelers were outcoached again. This is becoming like a weekly event. Like I said earlier, the Steelers played on Christmas Day. This game was played on the 4th of January. Think about the time they've had. How do you come out? You have this plan first and foremost, and then the plan isn't working and you don't abandon the plan soon enough and it's too little too late. The Steelers have been outcoached. They've been outsmarted, out everything, outclassed every single week during these 4 losses. And don't think that just because the team's losing that you think that they're automatically outcoached. No, sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way. But this has been painfully obvious watching these games. Outcoached. Again, I'm going to be talking about Mike Tomlin on Monday for sure. Next, the last loser, 4 losses heading into the playoffs. They are not limping. They are crawling into the postseason. 4 straight losses heading into the playoffs. This kind of makes me long for the Unleash Hell in December year, except they didn't make the playoffs that year. It's horrible, and it's become the norm. That might be the most disappointing thing. Could the Steelers win a playoff game? Yeah, they could. It's possible. Anything's possible. Where will they play? We won't know until today, Sunday. It'll be announced probably during Sunday Night Football. But for me, I look at this. You look at the way the team is trending. The Steelers might be close to double-digit underdogs if they go to Baltimore. Just awful. This is pitiful. It's friggin' pitiful. A 10-3 team finishes 10-7. That's all you need to know. Listen, I hope that as bad as this podcast was in terms of the 4 winners and 9 losers, I want you to know that we at the Steel Curtain Network are not going anywhere. Whether they win in the playoffs or lose in the playoffs, we will be here podcasting. SteelCurtainNetwork.com will be churning out articles because we want a place for the diehard fan to be able to go if they want to vent, if they want a community feel, if they want to just go somewhere where someone's just going to give them good content. That's what we're doing at the Steel Curtain Network. So go check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. Check out all of our podcasts. I'll be back tomorrow, Monday, for my usual, typical, regularly scheduled Let's Ride podcast. So be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, we finish these up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow. Go Steelers.